Welcome to Grow Fast, Grow Smart, the PI Playbook by Accelerator, the podcast exclusively designed to help personal injury law firms reach their full potential and serve their clients better. Today's episode is hosted by Chad Dudley, partner at Dudley DeBosier Injury Lawyers and co-founder of Accelerator Law Firm Consultants.
Hey guys, this is Chad Dudley here with the PI Playbook by CJ Advertising and Accelerator Consulting. Super excited today. Get a lot of cool guests, but got a special connection with our guest here today, Cameron Herold, the founder of the COO Alliance and the Second in Command podcast. Cameron is just a business and entrepreneur guru. Heard Cameron speak for the first time back in 2010. We started our firm in 2009. We've been about 1 year into it, and heard him speak at the CJ conference. Had a significant impact on Steve, James, and I. We actually, one of the things, and Cameron, you may, let's just introduce, but you may not know this. We listened to you speak, and you said, look, if you have anyone at your firm that you would not enthusiastically rehire, go back and set them compassionately but firmly set them free.
Yep.
And we did. And we had, I think, maybe 25 employees, 30 employees, and maybe there's 10 that we let go, which was about a third of our team.
Wow.
And we kept doing that every single quarter. We asked ourselves, we're going to get into that more. I'm excited to talk about that. But you have directly and indirectly impacted our firm in many ways. Thank you for being here, and welcome.
It's funny. Thank you, Chad. It's great to be here. I think I've used that kind of a line a lot over the last 17 years that I've been doing, or 20 years now that I've been doing a lot of speaking. And it's almost like unemployment goes up in every city that I go to, because I do talk about, set them free and telling a story about a close friend of mine, Tyler Wright. But yeah, that was around 2010 that I spoke at one of the very first CJ conferences. And then what was really cool is full circle now, 14 years later, you bought the company. So, but Arnie,
that's right. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. I taught the founder of CJ, Arnie Malum, back at an EO event that was held at MIT's Endicott House, probably 2007. So I've been around the industry for a long time. And I even got to meet a lot of, I guess, the CEOs of these personal injury law firms back in the day, and coached strangely about 5 or 6 of them over the years. I coached William Mattar, George Sink, and Alan Kensington, his COO. I coached Seth Bader and Louis Scott, his COO, for a while. And then John Barry, and it's just like a whole handful. Jason Hennessy from Hennessy SEO Digital, like just a whole group.
Me.
And now you, yeah, that's kind of cool.
No, and it's been awesome. And I think that I think you impacted a lot of firms in a bunch of different ways. But I remember that clearly going, I think you said, if you want to build a great business, you got to build great people, and you got to keep great people. And so, I mean, I'm not making light of it, but I mean, it was something every quarter we just take the entire list of employees and be like, hey, look, would we enthusiastically rehire every single person on this list? If not, what was the reason? And seeing, okay, are they in the right position? Are they in the right bus? But if they're not, go sit with them. And over the years, just built a tremendously great team, and that allowed us to grow. Where we have close to probably 175 employees, 50 plus attorneys now, and also working with a bunch of other firms. And that's at the core of it. And whenever we've gotten away with it, like, oh, we got it, it comes back to bite us, and we got to go, okay, it's about our people.
I spoke about this last night. We had our COO Alliance monthly mastermind call, and we had COOs from all over the world on the call. And I spoke about it last night. And I said that too often the CEO and the COO, or the leadership team of companies, spends their time with the bottom performers. And we're trying to grow these C players to make them B players at best, right? But the more time that we spend with our bottom performers means that we're not spending time with our best people.
Yeah.
And if you really want to scale a company, your A players are racehorses, your B players are the workhorses, and your C players should go to the glue factory. And then your leadership team, right? But your leadership team should spend the time with your A's and B's. You would never find a professional sports coach that's spending all of their time with the worst players on the team. They're spending all their time coaching the A's to make them world class, and coaching the B's to get them into the A spot. But yeah, we end up doing that disservice. And so by taking care of our worst people, we harm our best people, right? By taking care of our worst people, we make our best people feel like we don't care about them.
And when you had interesting terms there, you said racehorses and workhorses. Can you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit more about that and how you?
Yeah, it's interesting because so many people say, "Oh, I've got a team of A players." Well, I mean, if I sat down with you over coffee, I could prove to you in 5 minutes that at best you have a team of Bs, right? Which is fine. There's nothing wrong with having a really good, solid stable of workhorses because they grind it out, they put in a solid day's effort for a solid day's pay, they do the work, don't waste any time. You really need that. But those racehorses, the true God forbid they ever quit, right? Like you got to handcuff them to your company for 5 years. These are like they deliver on the core values. They're fun to be around. They're good energy machines. They deliver on, they bring in strategic insights. They've got P&L responsibility. They don't need to be managed. They can kind of deliver with autonomy. Those are the real A players that you want. But it's tough to get all those people. So don't fool yourself in thinking that all your Bs are As. Be okay with having maybe 75% of your team being B players,
Yeah.
but get rid of the C players. Get rid of the ones that aren't performing or the cultural cancers.
And so if you have like maybe 75% of your team are solid, B players, and then you
Mhm.
have what percent are A's for a successful organization? I mean, ballpark, is it a certain
Yeah,
amount?
if you can get like 10 to 15% are A players, 10 to
Yeah.
20%, I think you're really crushing it. If you're really at 20, 25%, you are either absolutely crushing it or you're probably a small to medium sized company. As you scale, it just gets hard to stay in that zone, right? To really truly have that 20, 25, 30% true A player group. So,
And,
and the A player, according to top grading, is for the money that you're willing to spend. Are they getting the results that you need for the work that they're doing, and are they delivering on the core values that the organization depends on? Those are the two areas for them, and it's for the money that you're willing to spend, right? If you're going to spend $120,000 a year for a marketing manager, they're going to be an A player for the 120,000 and for what you've got on their plate. But yeah, if you go get the head of marketing for Apple, of course they're going to crush them. But you can't afford to go spend $3.5 million a year as the salary for the head of marketing for Apple. So
yeah.
you have to tie it in for what you're willing to pay, for what's on their plate, and for the core values that you depend on.
And so whether someone might be working marketing director or reception or intake, all have the possibility of being an A player for that role, for that pay, and what you're
Absolutely.
asking them to do. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned reception. So I was at a client's office years ago. He had 16 dental locations, and I was coaching him on scaling up and making a world-class culture, doubling his revenue, doubling his profitability, giving him some free time and a life as well. And he said, "Oh, that woman's just our receptionist." I'm like, "Whoa, that is not just your receptionist. That's your director of first impressions. That is
Mm-hmm.
the first person that everybody sees when they come in the morning. It's the last person that every employee sees at the end of the day. That is like your chief Kool-Aid stirrer. That
Yeah.
person has to have the best company culture because they can either set somebody completely off in the wrong direction or really stir them up and bring them in the right direction. So never ever say that's just a, whatever.
And so you mentioned a couple other qualities. So you mentioned top grading, and these are the criteria is, are they delivering on what you'd want them to deliver based on what you're willing to pay them? I know I butchered that up a little bit, but
Yep.
probably you mentioned some qualities that are indicators of a player delivering uh, their their targets on time and not having to follow up, some autonomy. What can you go through that list again and maybe elaborate?
Sure, and I'll tie it to a specific role that I speak a lot about. My newest book, my sixth book, is called The Second in Command,
Hmm.
and I titled it that on purpose because the second in command to the entrepreneur or the CEO could be your integrator, could be your director of operations, could be your operations manager, maybe it's your vice president of operations, maybe it's your COO. But the title that you give them, right, the more senior that title is based on some core things. And I'll walk you through what those things are. Over the last 30 years, we've had a lot of title inflation. The
Yes,
banks,
I've heard.
so the bank back in the mid 90s, the banks started giving out vice president titles to everybody. Remember when like your buddy who was 23 got a vice president of like wherever, and you're like, oh, you're a
Yeah.
VP? He's like, yeah, I'm 6 layers below the CEO. I'm not really a VP. It's a marketing thing. And then when the internet hit, right, when all of a sudden like 95, 96, 97, when everybody was getting email addresses, we started to give away big titles as door openers because we didn't think it meant a big thing. So now everybody ended up with bigger titles. That's where it started. Prior to that, to get a C level, whether it's a CFO, CTO, CMO, whatever, you had to be a major player at a major company. So the title that you give someone has to be based on their roles and responsibilities, the compensation that you're willing to pay, the level of strategic insight they can bring to your company, the amount of P&L responsibility that you're willing to give them, the amount of autonomy that they can have in their day-to-day role, right? They don't need to be managed. They can come in and show you what needs to be done. And then usually the amount of people and partners that they can bring to the company when they show up. So as an example, when I walked into 1-800-GOT-JUNK as Brian's chief operating officer 24 years ago, October of 2000, Brian never showed me what needed to be done. He didn't know what needed to be done. I'd already built 2 other franchise companies. So I said, show me your vision. He showed me his vision. I read through it. I'm like, okay, here's the list of the top 10 major projects we have to get done this year. He's like, I don't know how to do that. I'm like, that's okay. I know how to do that. He's like, okay, go do it. And then I started bringing in the people and bringing in the systems and finding some of the partners to make us do it. And he didn't have to show me what to do, manage me at all, because I came in with the strategy and the P&L responsibility and the autonomy. So I was a true C-level, and I was also getting paid $300,000 a year 20 years ago, right? That's truly matching the title to the roles and the responsibilities. And that's how you know what an A player is too. An A player, regardless of the role or title that they're in, they'll challenge authority. They'll put their hands up and say, I disagree. I had a payroll clerk one time, like a very front line, $30,000 finance role, put her hand up in a meeting and challenged the vice president of IT. And she goes, I disagree. I think we should do this. And I'm like, awesome. Like that, you want leadership from everybody, right? Yeah. Well, that's more of a true A-level person when they can do that with respect. They can challenge somebody because it's for the good of the company, the good of the core values, the good of the vision of the company, the good of the BHAG. That's what you're looking for, regardless of what their title is.
Also a sign of a good culture, right? Where, I've been in these really terrible cultural environments and everyone's terrified of the owner or the leadership, and therefore they don't speak up, and therefore the owners and leadership are flying blind on a lot of things that they could improve, right?
Yeah. Culture is not the perks that you give away. Culture is not the free massages and the free lunches, and that's not culture. Those are perks. Culture is an obsession with core values. It's an obsession with your big, hairy, audacious goal. It's an obsession with the company's core purpose. And it's an alignment with that vivid vision. So everyone is going in the direction that the CEO can see the company being in 3 years out. That's where culture starts from. And then culture really permeates the organization when you get rid of the underperformers, you get rid of the cultural cancers, right? You cut the tumors out of the company body. And what you're left with are the A's and B's that are completely aligned. That's where culture goes to the moon.
And you mentioned, and it's so good, and you mentioned vivid vision. And I talked about earlier how you've impacted our firm positively, indirectly and directly. One of the other ways indirectly was your book, Double Double. Read it way back when, and at the time we were again a smaller firm, and I think maybe we're doing probably less than $10 million in revenue, or probably around $8 million, and we're like, all right, in 3 years, how do we double revenue? How do we double profitability? And it challenged us to think bigger. And you've seen companies grow in different industries, and the exercise is fantastic. Can you elaborate on what that really is? I mean, looking 3 years in the future, and it's been huge for us.
And it's interesting. You actually were given a copy of the book Double Double at the CJ conference. I remember Arnie bought a copy.
Read it right there. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. That was where we gave them out. So the vivid vision concept is something I learned. And by the way, almost everything that I've ever done in business is something that I've taken from some of the best companies on the planet. My dad sat me down when I was 16 years old, and he said, you're never going to be the smartest person in the room. You'll never be smart enough to figure this stuff out. So your R&D has to stand for rip off and duplicate, right? Yes. Go find the best systems that the best people are using, simplify them, right? Create it so that the dumbest guy in the worst city in the worst weather can really recreate it, and then you'll win. So the vivid vision concept is something I learned from an Olympic coach who is a high performance sports psychologist, and he met with a group of entrepreneurs in Vancouver, Canada in 1998. There was 120 entrepreneurs invited to this event. Only 16 of us showed up. And he started talking, and he said, I want you to close your eyes and pretend you're looking into a crystal ball. And we're like, oh my God, this is going to be the worst session in the world. Like, who is this flaky dude saying, look into a crystal ball? We're cool. We're entrepreneurs. He goes, no. I want you to pretend that you're looking into the future. And I want you to think about how athletes visualize themselves performing the event. He said, you've seen them. You've seen the downhill skier with their eyes closed and their glove kind of as if they're going through the parts of the course. Yeah. Or you've seen the high jumper with their eyes closed, almost rolling up and going up over the bar. Or you've watched Mary Lou Retton, the gymnast, walk around the gymnastics floor and stop at each spot thinking about whatever part of her routine she was in. He explained how athletes at the highest level use visualization so they can see themselves and feel themselves performing in the event. I remember talking about Boris Becker, one of the famous tennis players from 30, 40 years ago, who would visualize himself walking up to the net and shaking his opponent's hand and going, nice game, nice match, because he won. Yeah. In his mind, he even had the feeling of, I beat you already. Well, when you can show up in the sport that way, you win. In the business world, he challenged us to find a business or an industry that used visualization, and we came up with home builders. So anyone who's ever done a renovation or built a home or renovated an office, the homeowner is really the CEO of that project. The homeowner knows what they want the home to look like, or the kitchen renovation. Maybe it's from pictures and drawings they've gotten out of magazines. And they usually hand that vision to the contractor and they explain what they're looking for. And the contractor goes, I got it. Let me go away and come back in a week with some blueprints and some elevation drawings, the plans to make your vision come true. And if your plans match your vision, then I'm signing off on your vision, you're signing off on the plans. The contractor then gives the blueprints and the vision to the employees. The employees can build a home without ever speaking to the homeowner. And that concept snapped for me. I'm like, I get it. If the owner, if the CEO or the entrepreneur can get the vision out of their mind of what the company looks like, acts like, and feels like in the future, then the team can put the plan in place to start to make it come true. And then you hire the people and you inspire them with where you're going, and they know that their work is valuable, and then you're off to the races. So the vivid vision becomes a 4 or 5 page written description of what your company looks like, acts like, and feels like in the future. It describes your whole business, your customers, your employees, your suppliers, each business area, as if it's already happened. And then your employees can figure out how to make every sentence come true.
And how do you, is this something that each company should do once a year? I know that when we read the book, we're like, look, we made it a habit once a year, sit down and write, where do we want to be 3 years out? And look at comparing our last year's vivid vision and what we've progressed. Were we doing it wrong? We're doing it right.
You're doing it wrong. No, you're doing it wrong. You want to write a 3-year vivid vision. It's funny. One of my team members, she's been with me for 9 years. She just said, when are you rewriting the 2025 vivid vision? And I said, probably in August or September of 2025, because we have 1 more year. I wrote it 2 years ago. So we're chasing down that 3-year vivid vision. And just as we're coming towards the end of it, I'll rewrite the next 3-year vivid vision. I'm actually this week, when I'm in Bali this week, I'm actually writing my personal vivid vision for Cameron Herold for December 31st, 2027, who I show up as a father and a friend and a lover and a confidant and a human, because I'm just completing the one that I wrote 3 years ago that kind of elapsed now. So you write a 3-year one, you chase it down, you keep trying to make every sentence come true, you resist the urge to keep changing it, right? Resist the urge, because what happens is nobody gets the satisfaction of seeing it come true, because you're always changing, you're always moving the carrot. And if you write something that is only 1 year out, it's too similar to what you have today, right? So you want that big stretch, you want them working towards it, and then you build it like building a home. You put in the foundation, then you put in the walls, then you do the electrical and the plumbing, then you put in the drywall. Most entrepreneurs want the Wolf stove and the Sub-Zero fridge and the beautiful cabinets on day one. You don't put that stuff in your home day one. Yeah. You don't put a lot of the cool stuff in your company day one either. It's the foundational things of core values, core purpose, your BHAG, the right people, the training systems. Like, I obsess over growing and training people. I launched a training program, an online training program called Invest in Your Leaders. And I really work hard to get companies putting anyone who manages people through that online training, because that's a foundational building block that then allows you to build the home more successfully or build your business more successfully.
And we were talking, you gave out an interesting metric on how much should companies budget for training their team in a given year. And I think you threw out two metrics.
Yeah, I've always said that it's greater of 1% of their compensation or $750, whatever is more. So if you've got a $150,000 person, you should spend $1,500 a year on their training. I have a COO or CEO right now who is paying me to coach his COO, and you know that's $78,000 a year. So I have a CEO who's paying me $78,000 a year to coach his COO, and he's put his COO into the COO Alliance, which is $5,900 a year. And he's paying his COO to come to 2 of the in-person events, which is another $5,700 a year. So he's spending $98,000 to train his COO. Well, he's also on a rocket ship in terms of his company growth, right? So he knows that if he's investing $100,000 in his key person, the key person's never leaving. He's handcuffed to the company. He's going to be more successful. He's going to be more efficient. He's going to be able to leverage AI. He's going to have the confidence. So yeah, that's a lot that you would invest. But yeah, I would say if you're like a $300,000 person, it's 3 to 10 grand a year you want to be investing in that person. And now you can get a lot of leverage. You can get, as an example, you could get one person to come in and speak to all of your employees about AI. Maybe you pay the person $5,000 to do a 1 hour Zoom, but you train 60 people. Well, so that's $5,000 divided by 60 people. What's that come out to? Like $100, $90 a person. Yeah. So now you still got another $400 or $500 per person to keep spending. So you can be efficient with that program.
Yeah, and that's a good guideline. Just going, how much are the top performing companies spending to make their great people better, right?
Yeah, and if you're not going to spend 1% of the person's salary to make them better, you should probably fire the person. That's a really good data point or a really good kind of litmus test. If you've got an employee working for you, let's say they make $100,000 a year. If you're not willing to spend like $550 to put them through my Invest in Your Leaders training, you should probably fire them. Like, why wouldn't you spend $550 to make them more efficient and better, right? I had somebody one time say, well, what if I spend money on training them and they quit? Well, what if you don't spend money on them and they stay? Yeah. Like, do you want to just keep getting the same results?
Right. And it's interesting because we've seen this where if you're planning to grow, especially at an accelerated rate, the team, especially people in key leadership positions, have to grow as well.
Yes.
Or else they get left behind.
Yeah. And you're going to be replacing them.
Yeah.
There's a really
much institutional knowledge.
There's a really interesting data point there. I talked to Clayton Mask, who's the founder of Infusionsoft. He and I were in a mastermind community together. And we said that a mid-level manager can only go through 2 doubles in the size of the company before they're pretty much out of a job, right? If a company goes from 5 million to 10, your marketing manager can probably still be the marketing manager. When it gets to 20, they can probably still be the manager. But when it gets to 40, it's 8 times bigger than it used to be. If they're not growing their skill set, they're going to have to start reporting to somebody else, or they're going to have to go work somewhere else. So it's our job to grow their skills, their confidence, and their connections at the same rate that we're scaling up the company.
Yeah, and I see that being in some of the, at least in law firms I've worked with, some of the more difficult conversations, because they've gone from a really a smaller firm, they double or they triple in size. The person that ran their office at this stage, it's a challenge. It's such a challenge to keep up with hyper growth, and some do keep up, some adapt and improve their skill set and continue to learn. And then there's some that are like, look, I'd like to just, by choice, I don't want to go at that pace. Can I get off? And getting off at this bus stop means sometimes, hey, can I stay at this role in the company and not take on more responsibility? Or sometimes it's going to somewhere else. Is that what you see? Is that?
Exactly. And the danger of the person staying in their role and not evolving is at some point they're probably hitting a compensation level that we can't keep bumping them up even for more inflation pay, because we can probably go hire somebody else who's better. The baby boomers and Gen X are at danger of this, right? The oldest Gen Xer is 60 years old today. The youngest Gen Xer is about 48. That age group is saying, oh, I've got 30 years experience. No, you don't. You've got 5 years experience 6 times in a row, or you've got 4 years experience 5 times in a row. You need to now understand the tech stack. you need to be leveraging AI. And if you're not actually learning and staying ahead of that growth curve, I can go out and hire a 30-year-old who has 5 years experience and the technology skills to kick your ass.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
So it's true. It's crazy.
It is changing. Yeah, and it is changing right now. We're seeing AI do some crazy things in terms of, hey, we used to have someone, analyze these medical records, and now AI is doing a kick-ass job, or reading through these depositions and giving a summary, or reading through this discovery and giving. And I don't see what I'm seeing from my vantage point is getting great people the skills and the knowledge of how to leverage AI and really different labor sources, but
Yep.
AI and different labor sources to supplement what they're doing and make them more effective. If you're not keeping up with that, I don't know how you're going to compete in any
You're not.
industry.
You'll be out of a
in
job. There's
5
a
years.
really interesting saying that if the rate of change outside your business is greater than the rate of change inside your business, you're out of business.
Yeah.
And it's the same with the job market, right? The ability to adapt and learn and collaborate and change is so critical. And Gen Z is really good at that.
Yeah.
Gen Z have been playing multiplayer video games asynchronously over with headsets and video. They're so good at problem solving, working with people on teams,
Right.
multitasking. Like, they're so good at this, right?
Yeah.
And leveraging technology, because they've kind of grown up with this. Do you know that 12% of the current workforce in South Korea are robots?
Oh, it's crazy.
Already 12%. Do you know that in
Yes.
the second quarter of this year, second quarter of 2025, in Abu Dhabi, which is one of the 7 Emirates in the United Arab Emirates, right beside Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, they're launching electric autonomous helicopters to drive you around like the driverless Ubers and Waymos are doing right now. They're launching autonomous electric helicopters in Abu Dhabi in 6 months.
That's crazy.
The future is here, man. So yeah, it's adapt or die, right? And we need to hire people who can do that. In 30 years ago, you would hire a baby boomer, you'd put them in a job, and for the most part, they were in the same job for 5 years.
Yeah.
If you're getting into a job today, you might be doing the same job title for 5 years, but the way that you're doing work every 6 months is fundamentally different than it was 6 months ago.
And there's so much, yes, seeing it. And one question, we're talking about building great cultures and working with, A players and really getting your team aligned around a vivid vision and all these things. And as we're seeing the workforce change after COVID and go, hey, I want to work remotely. I want to work partially remote. How do you see that? I'm seeing people solve it or figure it out from they're building great law firms. It's tough to do. I would say there's like 5% are maybe figuring this out, but they have a tremendous competitive advantage over the ones that are struggling with it. And so my question is, I'd love to hear your perspective. Do you see that working? Do you see that?
I think that it has to be hybrid for sure. You have to be able to allow people to work from home and commute some of the time and come to an office once in a while. But the days of 9 to 5, 40 hours a week coming to a location are dead and gone, right? That's our grandpa's way of running companies. There's no way you're going to find all the best employees who happen to live 20 minutes from the office, because nobody wants to commute an hour each way. Nobody wants to waste all that time. Nobody wants to stare at a windshield. Nobody wants to get dressed and come to it just doesn't want to happen. And I don't think that there's any way that you're going to get the collaboration and the communication and the little things that happen when you're at a workforce, that you're not going to get that when you're over Zoom and talking to somebody 30 minutes a week. You just don't. So I think it needs to be both. I think somebody needs to be coming to the office a couple times a week. They need to be able to work from home and collaborate. And I think we need to be better at companies of paying people on a meritocracy and for results, not for showing up 40 hours a week. I don't care how many hours it takes you to do your work. I just know that what I need to get done, I'm willing to pay X for. And then I have some data points globally on that, right? I can now get work done at a fraction globally from what I've been paying in North America.
Sure. And so talking about sort of like a hybrid, and I'm seeing the same thing. The firms that get it right, it's not like they're all 100% remote at all times. They are intentional about getting together and spending time together on very consistent basis, right?
Yeah.
And so they're it's not fully remote, and they've been able to, by doing that, they've been able to kind of maintain some of the culture, maintain the vision, all kind of work in harmony. And it might be in the form of like, let me ask you this, huddles.
Yeah.
One of the things talking about huddles, and I think they're integral to maintaining connection, focus, and clarity on what you're pursuing. What do frequency of huddles, does that change how they go in this remote environment?
Yeah,
What
it
does that
does
look
not.
like?
By definition, the huddle is the all company stand up meeting that happens usually for about 7 minutes a day. I like to run a daily huddle around 11 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which are the 2 points in the day when the energy level drops for everybody. I do like to do it every single day. And I like to do it if you're at home or if you're in the office. So if you're at home, dial in over Zoom, and you got a big video monitor, you got a whole bunch of people coming in over Zoom. It's great. But yeah, daily huddle is one of those mandatories. It's a way to keep everybody in pulse, in check, communicating, sharing good news, looking at the numbers, staying on track, focusing on the key rocks for the quarter, and hearing a business area do an update every day. Like one day it's marketing, one day it's IT, the next day it might be operations. I have a really good example of the daily huddle that we started running in 2001 at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. It's on my Cameron Herold YouTube channel. If you just go there and look up Daily Huddle, you'll see it. Thousands and thousands and thousands of views. 1-800-GOT-JUNK has run a daily huddle at 1-800-GOT-JUNK every single day for 23 years.
Mm-hmm.
Never
That's
missed
crazy.
a day. And they're $850 million in revenue now.
And how many employees are attending the huddle?
Well, at the head office, and all the head office remotes, the franchisees all run a daily huddle for their franchise, and then the corporate runs it for corporate. So when I left, we had 248 people at our head office, and we had about another 2,900 employees system wide. So it was our head office came to the daily huddle at the head office every day.
And sometimes I'll hear firms go, oh, we can't do that, or it's not gonna, there's no way, we're so busy. And or we did it and it didn't work. And my experience has been, you're not doing it right.
Well, so there's a couple parts here. I have heard forever, my area is different, or my industry is different, or whatever. First off, I call bullshit. And I can give you so many examples. We had a guy in Calgary who said, Calgary's a bad market and 1-800-GOT-JUNK will never be successful here. But he was just a grumpy, negative guy. So we replaced him. He wanted out. So we found somebody to buy his franchise. We found a former college pro painters guy, where I got all my training at. Put this guy, Dave Harrop, in there, former college pro guy. And Dave crushed it in Calgary. Like within 2 years, doing 10x what the old guy Finton was doing there. It had nothing to do with the market. It had everything to do with the person. The reason Daily Huddle doesn't work is you're not doing it right. When we started it at 1-800-GOT-JUNK, it sucked. It was terrible. It was dorky. It was uncomfortable. And every day we pretended it was good. And then we found one thing to do the next day to make it better. And people would be like, it sucks. Like, no, it's working. It's working. Then we'd run away and go, fuck, it really sucks. How do we make it better the next day? I had a client that I was coaching from the UK. They were in London, England. And he said, yeah, our daily huddle sucks. I'm like, okay, well, tell me about it. He goes, well, we get together at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, nope, strike one. 9 o'clock in the morning is when people get to work and they want to get started. Started at 11 o'clock in the morning. Started at 10:55, right? An intentional time block when people's energy level drops. He goes, yeah, I'll do that. I go, how long are you running it for? He goes, 20 minutes. I go, dude, 7 minutes. It's not a 20-minute meeting. Of course it's not going well. Okay, keep talking. What else happens? He goes, well, we get together in the boardroom. We sit down. We pour tea. I'm like, dude, you're not having fucking tea together. That is not what you're doing. This is not like a tea break at 9 in the morning. It's a 7-minute all company stand up with a pulse, right? With an agenda. So the system is you start with good news for 90 seconds. Then you actually have one person shares the key numbers for the day. Then you explain what those numbers mean so that people understand how they all fit together. Like what's the trend for the month or the quarter. Then one business area does their update and everybody follows the same format for their update. What's going well, what's not going well, what we're working on in our business area and where we're stuck and who we're hiring. And then you go into any missing systems or frustrations. That's when people say, hey, this is broken, this isn't working. You don't discuss it or fix it. You just air the frustration or problem and somebody says, I got it, I'll take it. It's a no blame environment and then you finish with a cheer. If you do that pulse every single day at 11 o'clock or 2 o'clock, daily huddles don't suck at all. The reason I wrote my book, Meetings Suck, is meetings don't suck. We suck at running meetings. And daily huddle is one of the meetings that we need to have in our companies.
And with that pulse, so that's all hands on deck. Do you also have like departmental huddles do a similar 7-minute thing, or the
we ran what we called adrenaline right after huddle. So from 10:55 to 11:02 was our daily huddle. At 10:53, everyone's computer alarm went off and it signaled, stop what you're doing, walk down to the huddle room because huddle's starting in 2 minutes. 10:55 we started, 11:02 we ended, and then business areas would trickle off and they would run their, their agile, their sprint, their adrenaline meeting, whatever they wanted to call it, and they would run a smaller 5-minute meeting just for their business area, just marketing, just IT, whatever their scrum.
So another real quick one, 5 to 7 minutes, 5 minutes.
That was just that business area. Yeah, 5 minutes.
All that's detailed in your book. Meetings suck, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
So,
good stuff.
The idea of an L10 meeting was popularized in the book Traction. L10 is great, but that's your leadership meeting. That's not your annual meeting. It's not your quarterly retreats. It's not your daily huddle. It's not your coaching, your one-on-one coaching meetings. In my book, Meetings Suck, I talk about all the different meetings, how to run them, how to show up and participate in them. In my Invest in Your Leaders training, I actually have one of the 12 modules is how to actually run highly successful meetings and how to get everybody who's coming to the meetings engaged. Otherwise, don't invite them.
That's so good. And gosh, I could keep going on and on. We could talk all day.
That's why I'm coaching you.
Yes, that's right. Tremendously insightful, great stuff. And is there anything else that you'd like to add to our law firm listeners that?
You know what it is we should actually do more coaching calls like this and less like we've been doing. Like I can give you more insights and energy and ideas that you can bring into your businesses when we go deep like this than some of the discussions that we tend to have on some of the other areas.
Yeah.
The big one, here's the big thing I'll give to everybody who's running a law firm today and anybody who's listening. None of this matters to anybody. We're all going to die. This is like for real, right? Like this, I heard recently we all end up as a kebab. We all end up as meat on a stick. So the reality is have fun along the journey, right? Laugh a little bit, take care of the people that work for you, care more about the employees that come to your office every day or work for you every day than you care about your business. If you care more about them and their humanity and their fears and their insecurities, they'll go through brick walls to build your business. I actually got a tattoo recently on my arm that says walking each other home, because it just reminds me that none of this shit actually matters. We're just walking each other home.
That's awesome. That is great. Thank you for the perspective. Thank you for the insight. This is awesome. And we got to do this again. We're going to do this again because I got 100 other questions to ask. And thank you for being on our podcast on the PI Playbook by CJ and Accelerator. And hope to hear from you again soon.
You're so welcome. And maybe if people want to drop in the comments what they want to hear from me next time, if they have any questions in the comments, we can weave those into our next talk.
That'd be great.
Cool.
Thanks, Cameron.
Bud.
Thanks for listening to Grow Fast, Grow Smart, the PI Playbook by Accelerator. If you like what you heard today, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Until next time.